Ms.Carmina. This is my channel, Ms.Carmina Reads. I invite you to give me a thumbs up in this video, subscribe to my channel, so we can see each other again. This is where I read out loud. I'm going to continue reading Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles, as I promised earlier. Now I am home and I will read the next chapter, which is called April 2000, the third expedition, because this is a longer chapter. Now, I am at home, so understand that my doggos over there are wrestling. So don't be scared. Don't be concerned. They're just playing. They're okay. So, got my bookworm bookmark. Got my book. Let's get going. And welcome everybody. April 2000, the third expedition. The ship came down from space. It came from the stars and the black velocities and the shining movements and the silent gulf of space. It was a new ship. It had fire in its body and men in its metal cells, and it moved with a clean silence, fiery and warm. In it were 17 men, including a captain. The crowd at the Ohio field had shouted and waved their hands up into the sky, and the rocket had bloomed out great flowers of heat and color and run away into space on the third voyage to Mars. Now it was decelerating with metal efficiency in the upper Martian atmospheres. It was still a thing of beauty and strength. It had moved in the midnight waters of space like a pale sea leviathan. It had passed the ancient moon and thrown itself onward into the nothingness following another. Into one nothingness following another. The men within it had been battered, thrown about, sickened, made well again, each in his turn. One man had died, but now the remaining 16, with their eyes clear in their heads and their faces pressed to the thick glass ports, watched Mars swing up under them. "Mars!" cried Navigator Lustig. "Good old Mars!" said Samuel Hinkston, archaeologist. "Well," said Captain John Black, "the rocket landed on a lawn of green grass. Outside, upon this lawn, stood an iron deer. Farther up on the green stood a tall brown Victorian house, quite in the sunlight, all covered with scrolls and rococo. Its windows made of blue and pink and yellow and green colored glass. Upon the porch were hairy geraniums and an old swing which was hooked into the porch ceiling and which now swung back and forth in a little breeze. At the summit of the house was a cupola with diamond-leaded glass windows and a dunce cap roof. Through the front window, you could see a piece of music titled Beautiful Ohio, sitting on the music rest. Around the rocket, in 4 directions, spread the little town, green and motionless, in the Martian spring. There were white houses and red brick ones, and tall elm trees blowing in the wind, and tall maples and horse chestnuts, and church steeples with golden bells silent in them. The rocket men looked out and saw this. Then they looked at one another, and then they looked out again. They held to each other's elbows, suddenly unable to breathe, it seemed. Their faces grew pale. "I'll be damned," whispered Lustig. rubbing his face with his numb fingers. I'll be damned. It just can't be, said Samuel Hinkston. Lord, said Captain John Black. There was a call from the chemist. Sir, the atmosphere is thin for breathing, but there's enough oxygen. It's safe. Then we'll go out, said Lustig. Hold on, said Captain John Black. How do we know what this is? It's a small town within, but with thin but breathable air in it, sir. And it's a small town, the like of Earth towns, said Hinkston. And it's a small town, the like of Earth towns, said Hinkston the archaeologist. Incredible. It can't be, but it is. Captain John Black looked at him idly. Do you think that the civilizations of two planets can progress at the same rate and evolve in the same way, Hinkston? I wouldn't have thought so, sir. Captain Black stood by the port. Look out there. The geraniums. A specialized plant. That specific variety has only been known on Earth for 50 years. Think of the thousands of years it takes to evolve plants. Then tell me if it's logical that the Martians should have 1. Leaded glass windows, 2. Cupolas, 3. Porch swings, 4. An instrument that looks like a piano and probably is a piano, and 5. If you look closely through the telescopic lens there, through the telescopic lens here, it is logical that a Martian composer would have published a piece of music titled, strangely enough, Beautiful Ohio? All of which means that we have an Ohio River on Mars. Captain Williams, of course, cried Hinkston. What? Captain Williams and his crew of 3 men, or Nathaniel York and his partner. That would explain it. That would explain absolutely nothing. As far as we've been able to figure, the York expedition exploded the day it reached Mars, killing York and his partner. As for Williams and his 3 men, their ship exploded the second day after their arrival. At least the pulsations from their radios ceased at that time, so we figure that if the men were alive after that, they'd have contacted us. And anyway, the York expedition was only a year ago, while Captain Williams and his men landed here sometime during last August. Theorizing that they are still alive, could they, even with the help of a brilliant Martian race, have built such a town as this and aged it in so short a time? Look at that town over there. Why, it's been standing here for the last 70 years. Look at the wood on the porch of Newell. Look at the trees, a century old, all of them. No, this isn't York's work, or Williams. It's something else. I don't like it, and I'm not leaving the ship until I know what it is. For that matter, said Lustig, nodding, Williams and his men, as well as York, landed on the opposite side of Mars. We were very careful to land on this side. An excellent point. Just in case a hostile local tribe of Martians killed off York and Williams, we have instructions to land in a farther region and forestall a recurrence of such a disaster. So here we are, as far as we know, in a land that Williams and York never saw. Damn it, said Hinkston. I want to get out into this town, sir, with your permission. It may be there are similar thought patterns, civilization graphs on every planet. Civilization graphs on every planet in our sun system. We may be on the threshold of the greatest psychological and metaphysical discovery of our age. Oh, wow. I feel dizzy. I'm willing to wait a moment, said Captain John Black. It may be, sir, that we're looking upon a phenomenon that, for the first time, would absolutely prove the existence of God, sir. There are many people who are of good faith without such proof, Mr. Hingston. I'm one myself, sir, but certainly a town like this could not occur without divine intervention. The detail! It fills me with such feelings that I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Do neither, then, until we know what we're up against. Up against? Lustig broke. Against nothing, Captain. It's a good, quiet green town. A lot like the old-fashioned one I was born in. I like the looks of it. When were you born, Lustig? 1950, sir. And you, Hingston? 1955, sir. Grinnell, Iowa. And this looks like home to me. Hingston, Lustig, I could be either your fathers. I could be either of your fathers. I'm just 80 years old, born in 1920 in Illinois, and through the grace of God and a science that, in the last 50 years, knows how to make some old men young again, here I am on Mars, not any more tired than the rest of you, but infinitely more suspicious. This town out there looks very peaceful and cool, and so much like Green Bluff, Illinois, that it frightens me. It's too much like Green Bluff. He turned to the radio man. Radio Earth, tell them we've landed. That's all. Tell them we'll radio a full report tomorrow. Yes, sir. Captain Black looked out the rocket port with his face that should have been the face of a man 80, but seemed like the face of a man in his 40th year. Tell you what we'll do, Lustig. You and I and Hingston will look the town over. The other men'll stay aboard. If anything happens, they can get the hell out. A loss of 3 men's better than the whole ship. If something bad happens, our crew can warn the next rocket. That's Captain Wilder's rocket. I think due to be ready to take off next Christmas. If there's something hostile about Mars, we certainly want the next rocket to be well armed. So are we. We've got a regular arsenal with us. Tell the men to stand by the guns then. Come on, Lustig, Hingston. The 3 men walked together down through the levels of the ship. It was a beautiful spring day. A robin sat on a blossoming apple tree and sang continuously. Showers of petal snow sifted down the wind when the wind touched the green branches, and the blossoms' scent drifted upon the air. Somewhere in the town, someone was playing the piano, and the music came and went, softly, drowsily. The song was Beautiful Dreamer. Somewhere else, a phonograph, scratchy and faded, was hissing out a record of Roman in the Gloamin', sung by Harry Lauder. The 3 men stood outside the ship. They sucked and gasped at the thin, thin air and moved slowly so as not to tire themselves. Now the phonograph record being played was, "Oh, give me a June night, the moonlight and you." Lustig began to tremble. Samuel Hingston did likewise. The sky was serene and quiet, and somewhere a stream of water ran through the cool caverns and 3 shadings of a ravine. Somewhere a horse and wagon trotted and rolled by, bumping. "Sir," said Samuel Hingston, "it must be, it has to be, that rocket travel to Mars began in the years before the First World War." "No." "How else can you explain these houses, the iron deer, the pianos, the music?" Hingston took the captain's elbow persuasively and looked into the captain's face. "Say that there were people in the year 1905 who hated war and got together with some scientists in secret and built a rocket and came out here to Mars." "No, no, Hingston." "Why not? The world was a different world in 1905. They could have kept it a secret much more easily. But a complex thing like a rocket? No, you couldn't keep it a secret. And they came up here to live, and naturally the houses they built were similar to Earth houses because they brought the culture with them." "And they've lived here all these years?" said the captain. "In peace and quiet, yes. Maybe they made a few trips, enough to bring enough people here for one small town, and then stopped for fear of being discovered. That's why this town seems so old-fashioned. So old-fashioned. I don't see a thing myself older than the year 1927, do you? Or maybe, sir, the rocket travel is older than we think. Perhaps it started at some part of the world centuries ago and was kept secret by the small number of men who came to Mars with only occasional visits to Earth over the centuries." "You make it sound almost reasonable." "It has to be. We've the proof here before us. All we have to do is find someone and verify it." Their boots were deadened of all sound in the thick green grass. It smelled from a fresh mowing. In spite of himself, Captain John Black felt a great peace over him. It had been 30 years since he had been in a small town, and the buzzing of spring bees on the air lulled and quieted him, and the fresh look of things was a balm to the soul. They set foot upon the porch. Hollow echoes sounded from under the boards as they walked to the screen door. Inside, they could see a bead curtain hung across the hall entry, and a crystal chandelier and a Maxfield Parrish painting framed on one wall over a comfortable Morris chair. The house smelled old, of the attic, and infinitely comfortable. You could hear the tinkle of ice in a lemonade pitcher in the distant kitchen. Because of the heat of the day, someone was preparing a cold lunch. Someone was humming under their breath, high and sweet. Captain John Black rang the bell. Footsteps, dainty and thin, came along the hall, and a kind-faced lady of some 40 years, dressed in some sort of dress you might expect in the year 1909, peered out at them. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Beg your pardon," said Captain Black uncertainly, "but we're looking for, that is, could you help us?" He stopped. She looked out at him with dark, wondering eyes. "If you're selling something," she began. "No, wait," he cried. "What town is this?" She looked him up and down. "What do you mean? What town is this? You could be in a town and not know the name?" The captain looked as if he wanted to go sit under a shady apple tree. "We're strangers here. We want to know how this town got here and how you got here." "Are you census takers?" "No. Everyone knows," she said. "This town was built in 1868. Is this a game? Everyone knows, she said. Oh, excuse me. No, not a game, cried the captain. We're from Earth. Out of the ground, you mean? She wondered. No, we come from the third planet, Earth, in a ship, and we've traveled here on the fourth planet, Mars. This, explained the woman, as if she were addressing a child, is Green Bluff, Illinois, on the continent of America, surrounded by the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, on a place called the world, or sometimes the Earth. Go away now. Goodbye. She trotted down the hall, running her fingers through the beaded curtains. The three men looked at one another. Let's knock the screen door in, said Lustig. We can't do that. This is a private property. Good God. They went to sit down on the porch step. Did it ever strike you, Hingston, that perhaps we got ourselves somehow, in some way, off track and by accident came back and landed on Earth? How could we have done that? I don't know. Oh, God, let me think. Hingston said, but we checked every mile of the way. Our chronometer said so many miles. We went past the moon and out into space, and here we are. I'm positive we're on Mars. Lustig said, but suppose by accident, in space, in time, we got lost in the dimension and landed on Earth that is 30 or 40 years ago. Oh, go away, Lustig. Lustig went to the door, rang the bell, and called into the cool, dim rooms. What year is this? 1926, of course, said the lady, sitting in a rocking chair, taking a sip of her lemonade. Did you hear that? Lustig turned wildly to the others. 1926. We have gone back in time. This is Earth. Lustig sat down, and the three men let the wonder and terror the thought afflict them. Their hands stirred fitfully on their knees. The captain said, I didn't ask for a thing like this. It scares the hell out of me. How can a thing like this happen? I wish we'd brought Einstein with us. Will anyone in this town believe us? Said Hingston. Are we playing with something dangerous? Time, I mean. Shouldn't we just take off and go home? No, not until we try another house. They walked 3 houses down to a little white cottage under an oak tree. I like to be as logical as I can be, said the captain, and I don't believe we've put our finger on it yet. Suppose, Hingston, as you originally suggested, that rocket travel occurred years ago, and when the Earth people lived here a number of years, they began to get homesick for Earth. First, a mild neurosis about it, then a full-fledged psychosis, then threatened insanity. What would you do as a psychiatrist if faced with such a problem? Hingston thought, well, I'd think I'd rearrange the civilization on Mars so it resembled Earth more and more each day. If there was any way of reproducing every plant, every road, and every lake, and even an ocean, I'd do so. Then, by some vast crowd hypnosis, I'd convince everyone in a town this size that this really was Earth, not Mars at all. Good enough, Hingston. I think we're on the right track now. That woman in that house back there just thinks she's living on Earth. It protects her insanity. She and all the others in this living town She and all the others in this town are the patients of the greatest experiment in migration and psychosis you will ever lay eyes on in your life. "That's it, sir," cried Lustig. "Right," said Hinkston. "Well," the captain sighed, "now we've got somewhere. I feel better. It's all a bit more logical. That talk about time and going back and forth and traveling through time turns my stomach upside down. But this way," the captain smiled. Well, it looks as if we'll be fairly popular here." "Or will we?" said Lustig. "After all, like the pilgrims, these people came here to escape Earth. Maybe they won't be too happy to see us. Maybe they'll try to drive us out or kill us. We have superior weapons. This next house now. Up we go." But they had hardly crossed the lawn when Lustig stopped and looked off across the town, down the quiet, dreaming afternoon street. "Sir," he said. "What is it, Lustig?" "Oh, sir, what I see," said Lustig, and he began to cry. His fingers came up twisting and shaking, and his face was all wonder and joy and incredulity. He sounded as if at any moment he might go quite insane with happiness. He looked down the street and began to run, stumbling awkwardly, falling, picking himself up and running on. Look! "Don't let him get away," the captain broke into a run. Now Lustig was running swiftly, shouting. He turned into a yard halfway down the shady street and leaped up upon the porch of a large green house with an iron rooster on the roof. He was beating the door, hollering and crying, when Hinkston and the captain ran up behind him. They were all gasping and wheezing, exhausted from their run in the thin air. Grandpa!" cried Lustig. Two old people stood in the doorway. "David!" their voices piped, and they rushed out to embrace and pat him on the back and move around him. "David, oh David, it's been so many years. How you've grown, boy. How big you are, boy. Oh, David, boy, how are you?" Grandpa, sobbed David Lustig. "You look fine. He held them, turned them, kissed them, hugged them, cried on them, held them out again, blinking at the little old people. The sun was in the sky. The wind blew. The grass was green. The screen door stood wide. "Come in, boy, come in. There's iced tea for you, fresh, lots of it." "I've got friends here." Lustig turned and waved at the captain and Hinkston, frantically laughing. "Captain, come on up." "Howdy," said the people. "Come in. Any friends of David's are friends of us too. Don't stand there." In the living room of the old house, it was cool, and the grandfather clock ticked high and long and bronzed in one corner. There were soft pillows on large couches, and walls filled with books, and a rug cut in a thick rose pattern, and iced tea in the hands, sweating and cool on the thirsty tongue. "Here's to our Earth." Grandma tipped her glass to her porcelain teeth. "How long have you been here, Grandma?" said Lustig. "Ever since we died," she said tartly. "Ever since you what?" said Lustig. "Ever since we died," she said tartly. Ever since you what?" Captain John Black set down his glass. "Oh, yes," Lustig nodded. "They've been dead 30 years. "And you sit there calmly?" shouted the captain. "Tush!" The old woman winked glitteringly. Who are you to question what happens? Here we are. What's life anyway? Who does what for why and where? All we know is here we are, alive again, and no questions asked. A second chance." She toddled over and held out her wrist. "Feel," the captain felt. "Solid, ain't it?" she asked. He nodded. Well then, she said triumphantly, why go around questioning? Well, said the captain, it's simply that we never thought we'd find a thing like this on Mars. And now you've found it. I dare say there's lots on every planet that'll show you God's infinite ways. Is this heaven? Asked Hingston. Nonsense, no. It's a world and we get a second chance. Nobody told us why. But then, nobody told us why we were on Earth either. That other Earth, I mean. The one you came from. How do we know there wasn't another before that one? A good question, said the captain. Lustig kept smiling at his grandparents. Gosh, it's so good to see you. Gosh, it's good. The captain stood up and slapped his hand on his leg in a casual fashion. We've got to be going. Thank you for the drinks. You'll be back, of course, said the old people. For supper tonight? We'll try to make it, thanks. There's so much to be done. The men are waiting for me back at the rocket and... He stopped. He looked towards the door, startled. Far away in the sunlight, there was the sound of voices and shouting, and a great hello. What's that? Asked Hingston. We'll soon find out. And Captain John Black was out the front door abruptly, running across the green lawn into the streets of the Martian town. He stood looking at the rocket. The ports were open, and his crew was streaming out, waving their hands. A crowd of people had gathered, and in and through and among these people, the members of the crew were hurrying, talking, laughing, shaking hands. People did little dances. People swarmed. The rocket lay empty and abandoned. A brass band exploded in the sunlight, flinging off a gay tune from upraised tubas and trumpets. There was a bang of drums and shrills of fifes. Little girls with golden hair jumped up and down. Little boys shouted, "Hooray!" Fat men passed around 10-cent cigars. The town mayor made a speech. Then each member of the crew, with a mother on one arm and a father or sister on the other, was spirited off down the street into little cottages or big mansions. Stop! Cried Captain Black. The door slammed shut. The heat rose in the clear spring sky, and all was silent. The brass band banged off around a corner, leaving the rocket to shine and dazzle alone in the sunlight. Abandoned, said the captain. They abandoned the ship, they did. I'll have their skins, by God. They had orders. Sir, said Lustig, don't be too hard on them. Those were all old relatives and friends. That's no excuse. Think how they felt, Captain, seeing familiar faces outside the ship. They had their orders, damn it. But how would you have felt, Captain? I would have obeyed orders. The captain's mouth remained opened. Striding along the sidewalk under the Martian sun, tall, smiling, eyes amazingly clear and blue, came a young man of some 26 years. John, the man called out and broke into a trot. What? Captain John called back, swayed. John, you old son of a bitch! The man ran up and gripped his hand and slapped him on the back. It's you, said Captain Black. Of course. Who do you think it was? Edward! The captain appealed now to Lustig and Hingston, holding the stranger's hand. This is my brother Edward. Ed, meet my men, Lustig, Hingston, my brother. They tugged each other's hands and arms and then finally embraced. Ed! John, you bum, you! You're looking fine, Ed. But Ed, what is this? You haven't changed over the years. You died, I remember, when you were 26 and I was 19. Good God, how many years ago? And here you are. And Lord, what goes on? Mom's waiting, said Edward Black, grinning. Mom? And Dad, too. Dad? The captain almost fell, as if he had been hit by a mighty weapon. He walked swiftly and without coordination. Mom and Dad alive? Where? Oh my gosh, I've lost my place completely. Here it is. At the old house on Oak Knoll Avenue. The old house, the captain stared in delighted amaze. Did you hear that, Lustig, Hingston? Hingston was gone. He had seen his own house down the street and was running for it. Lustig was laughing. You'll see, Captain, what happened to everyone in the rocket. They couldn't help themselves. Yes, yes, the captain shut his eyes. When I open my eyes, you'll be gone, he blinked. You're still there. God, Ed, but you look fine. Come on, lunch's waiting. I told Mom. Lustig said. Sir, I'll be with my grandfolks if you need me. What? Oh, fine, Lustig. Later, then. Edward seized his arm and marched him. There's the house, remember it? Hell, I bet I can beat you to the front porch. They ran. The trees roared over Captain Black's head. The earth roared under his feet. He saw the golden figure of Edward Black pull ahead of him in the amazing dream of reality. He saw the house rush forward, the screen doors swing wide. Beat you! Hey, Captain Homer, Edward cried. I'm an old man, panted the captain, and you're still young. But then, you always beat me, I remember. In the doorway, Mom, pink, plum, and bright. Behind her, pepper gray Dad, his pipe in his hand. Mom, Dad! He ran up the steps like a child to meet them. It was a fine, long afternoon. They finished a late lunch, and they sat in the parlor, and he told them all about his rocket, and they nodded and smiled upon him, and Mother was just the same, and Dad bit the end of a cigar and lighted it thoughtfully in his old fashion. There was a big turkey dinner at night, and time flowing on. When the drumsticks were sucked clean and lay brittle upon the plates, the captain leaned back and exhaled his deep satisfaction. Night was in all the trees and coloring the sky, and the lamps were halos of pink light in the gentle house. From all the other houses down the street came sounds of music, pianos playing, doors slamming. Mom put a record on the Victoria, and she and Captain John Black had a dance. She was wearing the same perfume he remembered from the summer when she and Dad had been killed in the train accident. She was very real in his arms, and they danced lightly to the music. It's not every day, she said, you get a second chance to live. Oh, I'll wake in the morning, said the captain, and I'll be in my rocket in space, and all this will be gone. No, don't think that, she cried softly. Don't question. God's good to us. Let's be happy. Sorry, Mom. The record ended in a circular hissing. You're tired, son, Dad pointed with his pipe. Your old bedroom's waiting for you, brass bed and all. But I should return to my men. But I should report my men in. Why? Why? Well, I don't know. No reason, I guess. No one at all. No, none at all. They're all eating or in bed. A good night's sleep won't hurt them. Good night, son. Mom kissed his cheek. It's good to have you home. It's good to be home. He left the land He left the land of cigar smoke and perfume and books and gentle light and ascended the stairs, talking with Edward. Edward pushed a door open, and there was a yellow brass bed and the old semaphore banners from college and a very musty raccoon coat, which he stroked with muddied affection. "It's too much," said the captain. "I'm numb and I'm tired. Too much has happened today. I feel as if I'd been out in a pounding rain for 48 hours without an umbrella or a coat. I'm soaked to the skin with emotion." Edward slapped wide the snowy linens and flounced the pillows. He slid the windows up and let the night-blooming jasmine float in. There was moonlight and the sound of distant dancing and whispering. "So this is Mars," said the captain, undressing. "This is it." Edward undressed in idle, leisurely moves, drawing his shirt off over his head and revealing golden shoulders and the good muscular neck. The lights were out. They were in bed, side by side, as in the days how many decades ago? The captain lolled and was nourished by the scent of jasmine pushing the lace curtains out upon the dark air of the room. Among the trees, upon a lawn, someone had cracked up a portable phonograph, and now it was playing softly, always. The thought of Marilyn came to his mind. Is Marilyn here? His brother, lying straight out in the moonlight from the window, waited and then said, "Yes, she's out of town, but she'll be here in the morning." The captain shut his eyes. "I want to see Marilyn very much." The room was square and quiet, except for their breathing. "Good night, Ed." A pause. "Good night, John." He lay peacefully, letting his thoughts float. For the first time, the stress of the day was moved aside. He could think logically now. It had all been emotion, the bands playing, the familiar faces, but now, how, he wondered. How was all this made, and why? For what purpose? Out of the goodness of some divine intervention? Was God then really that thoughtful of his children? How and why? And what for? He considered the various theories advancing in the first heat of the afternoon by Hingston and Lustig. He let all kinds of new theories drop in lazy pebbles down through his mind, throwing out dull flashes of light. Mom, Dad, Edward, Mars, Earth, Mars, Martians. Who had lived here 1,000 years ago on Mars? Martians? Or had this always been the way it was today? Martians. He repeated the word idly, inwardly. He laughed out loud almost. He had the most ridiculous theory quite suddenly. It gave him a kind of chill. It was really nothing to consider, of course. Highly improbable. Silly. Forget it. Ridiculous. But he thought, just suppose now that there were Martians living on Mars and they saw our ship coming and saw us inside our ship and hated us. Suppose now, just for the hell of it, that they wanted to destroy us as invaders, as unwanted ones, and they wanted to do it in a very clever way, so that we would be taken off guard. Well, what would be the best weapon? What would be the best weapon be that a Martian could use against Earthmen with atomic weapons? The answer was interesting. Telepathy, hypnosis, memory, and imagination. Suppose all of those houses aren't real at all. This bed not real, but only figments of my own imagination. given substance by telepathy and hypnosis through the Martians, thought Captain John Black. Suppose these houses are really some other shape, a Martian shape, but by playing on my desires and wants, these Martians have made this seem like my old hometown, my old house. The lull made me to lull me out of my suspicions. What better way to fool a man, using his own mother and father as baits? In this town so old, from the year 1926, long before any of my men were born, from a year when I was 6 years old, and there were records of Harry Lauder and Maxfield Parrish paintings still hanging, and bead curtains, and beautiful Ohio, and turn-of-the-century architecture. What if the Martians took the memories of a town exclusively from my mind? They say childhood memories are the clearest, and after they built the town from my mind, they populated it with the most loved people from all the minds of the people on the rocket. And suppose those two people in the next room asleep are not my mother and father at all, but two Martians, incredibly brilliant, with the ability to keep me under this dreaming hypnosis of all of the time. And that brass band today? What a startling, wonderful plan it would be. First, fool Lustig, then Hingston, then gather a crowd, and all the men in the rocket, seeing mothers, aunts, uncles, sweethearts dead 10, 20 years ago, naturally disregarding orders, rush out and abandon ship. What more natural? What more natural? What more unsuspecting? What more simple? A man doesn't ask too many questions when his mother is suddenly brought back to life. He's much too happy. And here we all are tonight in various houses, in various beds, with no weapons to protect us, and the rocket lies in the moonlight, empty. And wouldn't it be horrible and terrifying to discover that all this was part of some great, clever plan by the Martians to divide and conquer us and kill us? Sometime during the night, perhaps, my brother here in this bed will change form, melt, shift, and become another thing, a terrible thing, a Martian. It would be very simple for him just to turn over in bed and put a knife into my heart. And in all those other houses down the street, a dozen other brothers or fathers suddenly melting away and taking knives and doing things to the unsuspecting sleeping men of earth. His hands were shaking under the covers. His body was cold. Suddenly, it was not a theory. Suddenly, he was very afraid. He lifted himself in bed and listened. The night was very quiet. The music had stopped. The wind had died. His brother lay sleeping besides him. Carefully, he lifted the covers, rolled them back. He slipped from bed and was walking softly across the room when his brother's voice said, "Where are you going?" "What?" His brother's voice was quite cold. I said, "Where do you think you're going?" "For a drink of water." "But you're not thirsty." Yes, I am." "No, you're not." Captain John Black broke and ran across the room. He screamed twice. He never reached the door. In the morning, the brass band played a full dirge. From every house in the street came little solemn processions, bearing long boxes, and along the sun-filled streets, weeping, came the grandmas and mothers, and sisters and brothers and uncles and fathers, walking to the churchyard, where there were new holes freshly dug and new tombstones installed, 16 holes in all, and 16 tombstones. The mayor made a little sad speech, his face sometimes looking like the mayor, sometimes looking like something else. Mother and Father Black were there, with Brother Edward, and they cried, their faces melting now from a familiar face into something else. Grandma and Grandpa Lustig were there weeping, their faces shifting like wax, shimmering all things shimmer on a hot day. The coffins were lowered. Someone murmured about the unsuspected and sudden deaths of 16 fine men during the night. Earth pounded down on the coffin lids. Earth pounded down on the coffin lids. The brass band playing Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, marched and slammed back into town, and everyone took the day off. What did you think about that? What did you think about that story? Let me know in the comments. I really want to know. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for reading together. Give me a thumbs up to support my channel. Subscribe if you want to see me again. Consider joining if you can afford to. And come back again. Love to have you. Goodbye, readers and scholars. Be safe.